So do you enjoy roaming in nature delightfully and carefree? Then you might want to know about the Swedish allemansrätten, a concept also found in other cultures but very closely associated to Swedishness. This Swedish public right gives everyone the opportunity to walk freely in nature but also on land that somebody else owns. At the same time, the right of access means that we must be careful and show respect in nature. The word allemansrätt did not exist in the Swedish Academic Dictionary as a single word until 1998, but it has been used orally for more than 100 years or since the movement of outdoor recreation started in the mid-19th century. The term is defined in today's dictionaries as everyone's right to roam or temporarily stay on other people's lands, overnight, while picking berries and so on, with certain limitations. Furthermore, this word or concept can be found in all Nordic countries except for Denmark. In Norwegian, for example, it would be allemansrätten, in Icelandic allemansr, and in Finnish it's jokamiehenoikeus. The allemansrätt got written into law in 1994 without being seemingly defined by a legal provision when Sweden became a part of the European Union. The law states that everyone has the right to access to nature. It is also mentioned twice in the Environmental Code. In the Constitution, the allemansrätt is written in the same context as ownership rights, where these concepts are binary, contrasting each other. Just like allemansrätt, the owner's right is not defined in detail and therefore a legal praxis is mainly based on tradition, and actually very few cases have been brought to court. The Environmental Protection Agency of Sweden, Naturvårdsverket, has the motto "Don't disturb, don't destroy", inte störa, inte förstöra, which really sums up quite well the sort of common sense that characterizes the cultural norms or traditions that we could also sum up as the Swedish habitus, to use a concept from sociology. The limitations are ensured by the Environmental Code, the Land Code, the Penal Code, and other codes regarding littering, vandalism, off-road driving, to name some of them, and privacy areas in the surrounding area to a residence. On the official website of Sweden, sweden.se, the allemansrätten is claimed to be a part of national identity. It is a national symbol, kind of like a feeling or a cultural norm rooted deeply in Swedish identity. So it is also strongly connected to a sense of national pride. They don't want to identify themselves with one another, the Nordic nations, since it's seldom described as a unique Scandinavian or Nordic tradition when the uniqueness is underlined, or at least on Swedish websites and media. This is a sign of national identification by sorting people into two groups of belongingness, indicating that allemansrätten is so deeply rooted in Swedish culture that it goes without saying, and it becomes thus more like a cultural norm or a feeling. In 1994, it was revealed that environmental topics were of significant concern, and the future of the allemansrätt was the public's second biggest worry regarding the entering to the European Union. The majority continued to feel strongly about protecting this right, with ongoing debates regarding this situation. From the public perspective, it supposedly threatened the privilege to roam freely in nature, regardless of the owner's allowance, if the landowner's ownership of nature would increase, but that didn't really happen much. So what exactly are the do's and don'ts of this right? Well, let's start with the do's. You can walk, cycle and ride and be almost everywhere in nature, but not too close to houses. If you open a gate, you must close it behind you. You can cycle, walk and ride on private roads. You can camp one night. If you want to camp for a longer time, you must ask the owner of the land. You can swim, go by boat and go ashore, but not too close to the houses. You can pick wildflowers, berries, mushrooms. You can fish with a fishing rod along the coast and in the 5 largest lakes in Sweden. You can also make a small fire if you are careful enough, but it is best to burn where there is a special place designated for that. In summer, fires are often prohibited. What you cannot do? Well, you may not pass over plots, gardens, plantations or cultivated land, fields. You may not drive a car, motorcycle or moped in nature. You may also not drive on paths in parks or on exercise tracks. You may not make a fire if the weather is too dry or the wind is too strong, you may not or must not fire directly on a slab of rock because it may break. In summer, like I said before, fires are often prohibited. You must not damage trees and bushes or take them home with you. You may not take fruit, berries and vegetables or anything else that grows in gardens, fields or plantations. Of course, you may not throw or leave litter. You may not chase, disturb or harm animals. You cannot take bird eggs or touch the animals' nests or young. You may not fish in lakes or streams without a permit. You cannot have a dog loose between March the 1st and August the 20th, because then the animals of the forest have their young and a loose dog can frighten or injure the animals. So it is best to keep the dog on a leash at all times. You may not pick flowers that are endangered. The purpose of protection is to safeguard plants that are at risk of disappearing. And that would be it to sum it up. Before I continue, just a kind reminder to subscribe if you like this kind of topics. Every little bit helps the channel out. Alright, let's talk a little bit about the relationship between this concept and the broader concept of national identity. So if you look at the Swedish national anthem, for example, that is also a telling example of this mentality, because it mainly embraces the natural beauty of mountains, green fields, skies, sun, and feelings like kindness, freedom, joy, and so on and so forth. Although this was originally written about Scandinavia, so the peninsula which covers Norway, Sweden and northern Finland, I also have a video on that by the way, Sweden chose this as the national anthem and best representative of the national pride. Other anthems focus on stuff like warfare, power and strength, but not this one here. A lot of Swedish family names, furthermore, are also linked to nature, such as berg, mountain, björk, birch, lund, grove, holm, islet, strand, beach, ström, stream, and so on. Why is it so linked to the idea of Swedishness? Well, there are some historical and geographical factors at play. Outdoor recreation was originally connected to status, being wealthy enough to have spare time for strolling to the mountains. With increased welfare in Europe, especially in Northern Europe, a great number of Westerners could afford the status symbol of traveling for outdoor recreation. And in postmodern Sweden, individuals with higher education and higher income actually value this right existence more than others nowadays as well. Furthermore, 2/3 of Swedish land area are covered with forest, and adding the other categories like meadows that also offer a recreational possibility, combined it is over 75% of Sweden's total land area. That gives the country some possibilities towards a sustainable recreational area where people can take advantage of the allemansrätten. In contrast to Sweden, Danes have never had the geographic landscape to offer such access to the public. Near all of Denmark's nature is impacted, just like half of the Skåne county, so southern Sweden, also belonging to Denmark at some point. As the maps indicate, the area is mainly of agricultural kind. That sort of land is sensitive for public encroachment, and therefore the Danish government hasn't followed the other Nordic countries in this matter. Despite that, Denmark nowadays has many great recreational areas where all sorts of outdoor activities can be practiced, and the public right of access has been gradually reclaimed. The owner's rights in Sweden and other Nordic countries has historically not been as important ideologically between the different social groups as in the rest of Europe. The Nordic legal system is considerably more based on these old Germanic customs rather than the Roman model, which explains the tradition of weaker ownership rights. In countries such as New Zealand, the United States or Australia, where the owner's right and laws on trespassing is strong, it seems almost unthinkable to establish allemansrätt, so the public right of roaming. By the time the bourgeoisie obtained power in Sweden, land rights had already been established, making it too late for the elite to fiddle with the new situation. Sweden came to be a leading example for nature conservation in Europe by establishing the first European national parks in about 1909. Then we have the Swedish Tourist Association, Svenska Turistföreningen, founded in 1885, and other associations like the Outdoor Association, Friluftsfrämjandet in 1892, the first trade unions afterwards, all pieces of a puzzle of creating a platform for outdoor activity in Sweden. There are some powerful symbols used here to establish and strengthen nationalism in Sweden, as the common Swede got more recreational time at his disposal, and the beauty of the countryside was commercialized and romanticized through artists such as Richard Berg, and the nostalgic view on nature grew. Mythical creatures who lived in nature according to medieval folklore were displaced by a more scientific thinking regarding nature, but this also meant that new guidelines were needed to help people and nature live in harmony. Numerous diverse governmental agencies share the responsibility of preserving and maintaining allemansrätten, for example, the Public Health Agency, the Swedish Forest Agency, the National Heritage Board, the Agency for Education, and the Agency for Marine and Water Management. Yearly, we have the Environmental Protection Agency, Naturvårdsverket, organizing an event, Tankesmedja för friluftsliv, where all stakeholders and accountable for nature and roaming in nature are provided a platform for dialogue and exchanging experiences, cooperating towards a sustainable outdoor recreation on a national basis. This also serves as a step towards the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The Swedish National Agency for Education makes sure that allemansrätten is also a part of the national curriculum in Sweden, and that it contributes to its code of conduct, and this should be carried on to younger generations regardless of their background. They are, however, not the only ones producing material to educate about. The educational and informative material can also function as an inclusion-exclusion strategy as well. Educational material might imply that there are others who are less civilized, environmentally ignorant, people who need to be saved. So here we have the we know better mentality at work. Of course, Swedish qualities like being organized, clean, helpful, morale, and with respect towards the environment are very useful. That's not the point, but how they are used to create a stronger sense of belongingness, the we-hood, but simultaneously also widen the gap between who are we and who are them. This rather has to do with people of non-European background who did not have as good knowledge of the allemansrätten as individuals from within Europe than something having to do with the inherent traits of culture. People with Swedish backgrounds tend to take their relation to nature for granted, and therefore one needs to work actively to empower immigrants towards environmentally responsible behavior and the benefits of nature, not only for their own health and general well-being, but also benefits on a larger scale need to be highlighted here. Part of the issue is also a cultural misunderstanding stemming from the way nature is experienced, with long walks in solitude not being the norm for other cultures. The relationship to nature overall remains one important criterion to check on the road to integration in a community, and increasing awareness of natural and environmental problems are reached with evolving and including all inhabitants. Outdoor recreation goals serve to increase social welfare by making nature and outdoor recreation accessible and inclusive for everyone. The Swedish Outdoor Association also mentions how nature increasingly served as a safe harbor for individuals when the pandemic, for example, seemed to threaten everything else in daily life. Year 2021 is celebrated as the year of outdoor recreation, as a matter of fact. Friluftslivets år. All in all, the privilege and responsibilities that this right includes can hardly be considered as unique. And the way Swedes want to own it says more about how strongly they feel about it than the actual origin. This civilian responsibility, along with education and some advertising, leads to a general environmentally responsible behavior and can also serve as a marker of integration in new groups. After all, it is included in all kinds of books on how to be more Swedish after moving to Sweden. Alright, hope you liked this. This was Irina talking. This is my little channel on Scandinavian culture, Norse religion and Germanic languages. Feel free to check out other videos and hit me with a like and subscribe if you think it's worth it. Until next time, all the best.